It's the weekend and you have financial questions that need answering. That can only mean one thing. It's time for Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
All righty. It's time to get busy managing your financial life. I'm Jill Schlesinger. This is Jill on Money. Mark Talercio running the show, the newly branded CFP, but you can't say CF. Can I say it yet or not? Am I allowed to say that you're a CFP professional yet or not? All right, technically he's not. Technically he passed the exam, which is amazing. But we're not. The CFP board has very interesting rules about the way you can use what they call the mark. But anyway, that's Mark. He's running the show, and he's now passed the CFP exam, and he's amazing. There we go. You are listening to this program because you want to take the mystery out of your financial life. We are starting the show broadcasting live from the Capital One studios. Capital One, what's in your wallet? And I figure, Mark, this may be the last show when people are really paying attention to what's going on in their financial lives. Do you think we're going to lose them? Or is there a sweet spot in between Thanksgiving and Christmas? Maybe. So essentially we have this show and maybe one more where we're going to do some year-end planning with our old pal Michael Goodman. And presuming that we capture your attention for those, you might be better off in your financial life. If you have a question, all you have to do is send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. That is our email address. You can always go to the website, jillonmoney.com, and there we've got a little contact button. It's in the upper right-hand corner. So easy. Now, here is a very simple way to get your holiday shopping done. Mark, here comes the shameless plug. I probably need some music for this. I'm not sure what the cue the music which is the shameless plug. How about just buying my book, The Dumb Things Smart People Do With Their Money, 13 Ways to Right Your Financial Wrongs. What a good present for the holidays. People will get the new year started off on the right foot. All right, that's enough of that. We start the show with a caller, and today we are going to Molly in the Bay Area. Hi, Molly.
Hi. Thanks for having me. I wrote in about one question, and then I actually decided I may have a different question to ask.
All right.
I'm not sure which one to ask.
You go. Do them both, girl. Let's go.
Oh, nice. Awesome. Okay, so my first one is about 401k rollovers. I always thought that you should just, I recently got a new job, and so now I have to deal with my old 401k and from my previous job and roll it over somewhere. And I just assumed that I should roll it over to my new one. I was just wondering what your thoughts are on that. Should I roll it over to my current job or something else?
Where is the current job's 401k? What investment management firm has it?
The login is through Fidelity.
Ah, all right.
I think I have a target date fund.
Mm-hmm. How much money are we talking about, Molly?
In my old one?
Yeah.
Maybe $20,000.
You know what? If it's Fidelity, it's a pretty cheap option, and so that's completely a reasonable choice. And if you just want to kind of keep it clean and consolidate accounts, make it easy for yourself, there's no problem using the new 401k through Fidelity. And it might even just be easier in general. So I don't think that that's a problem. How long have you been at your new job?
Like 3 months.
Okay, so there's not much money in there yet. So, yeah, I think that that's completely perfect. That's one way to kind of keep things simple. I don't see any problem with that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks for answering that question.
All right, what's the next extra question? What's my extra credit?
So, yeah, bonus question.
Mm-hmm.
I now work for a public company. I've never worked for a public company before, and there's an employee stock buying program where we get like 15% off stocks. It's a little bit complicated, but
you get a 15%. You get a 15% discount to the market price, and then you have to hold it for a certain period of time. And it seems like a great deal, right?
Every 6 months you can buy in, and so you have to allocate a percentage of your post-tax salary to up to, I think, 15%, and they hold that, and it accumulates for 6 months, and then they buy the stock afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the lowest price that the stock was during 6 months, and you get 15% off that.
Okay. Well, a couple of things that we would want to sort of generally consider. Number one, how much money do you have in your emergency reserve fund? Have you got 6 to 12 months of your expenses socked away?
This is one of the things that I want to work on. I'm getting close to that.
Okay. Close is good.
And with the new job, I have, more cash flow, so I'm accumulating more savings.
Okay. So I think that before we start buying stock, what I would say is make sure you've got that emergency reserve fund. Do you have debt that is outstanding, meaning credit card, auto, or student loan?
No.
Okay.
That's free.
So what percentage are you putting into your 401k right now?
I put 8% of my income, and then it's matched, so it's as if I'm putting in 10 or 11%, I think.
Okay. Here is my bonus question response. You ready? I think that hold off on doing the stock, get yourself that emergency reserve fund beefed up, and then how old did you say you were, or did you say you were? How old are you?
I didn't. I'm 27.
You're so young, and to be young.
So much ahead of me.
Mm-hmm. Well, as I was just saying to Mark, I don't want my 20-something brain, but I wouldn't mind my 20-something body. Okay, so what I would say is get that emergency reserve fund, and then how about since your cash flow is good, once you get the emergency reserve fund, bump up your 401k, put 15% away. Basically double what you're doing right now. I really want you to max out. How much are you earning right now?
Base is 70, and with bonuses and stuff would be about 80.
Great. Okay, perfect. Get to 15% if you have to do it in steps. Get the emergency reserve fund beefed up, then go from 8 to 12%, and then go from 12 to 15%. And once you have that, let me know, because then I actually would want to see whether you have other needs. Like, are you thinking about hey, I really would like to buy a house. I don't want you to buy the stock unless you basically are I don't know what else to do with all this money I have. Okay, now as we go into the break, a few things that you can think about. I already plugged the book on the way in, but I'll be plugging it the rest of the show because I do think it's a good book for the holiday season. But if you want to do something with maybe a little bit less of a commitment, financially or monetarily, why not go to our website? It's called JillOnMoney.com, and there you can sign up for our free weekly newsletter. Okay, you can also buy the book there. You can also subscribe to our podcast. It is coincidentally named Jill on Money, and you can get it anywhere you find your favorite podcast. That might be Apple or Stitcher or radio.com or Google Play. Jill on Money. It's our sister broadcast. The podcast's a little different than the radio show. You might want to check it out. Okay, when we return, more of your questions. We'll be right back.
Back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger helps you take the mystery out of your finances.
You're back. It's Jill on Money, and it's pre-Thanksgiving madness, so there's something to keep in mind. I should note that a lot of people are coming in under this deadline. We have the Medicare open enrollment, which is going on until December 7th. When does the Affordable Care Act enrollment close, Mark? I think it's soon. And I bring this up because I did get a message from a friend of mine who finds out, this seems sort of shady. She finds out that the company that hired her changed the rules on who gets health insurance, and they've changed it as of now. And maybe they announced it. I guess they had to announce it in time for people to scramble. Anyway, December 15th. I see. I'm not as dumb as I thought. Anyway, so she went on shopping for the Affordable Care Act. She went for coverage, and she looked at all the plans. She called an insurance agent. Mark, do you know how much money for a family of 5, the coverage that she was asking for? Have a guess per year? So he thinks 16 grand. The best price she got was 21 grand. The highest price was 24 grand. I mean, God, we have got to fix this system. You can't have, and also you can't really have like 3 young kids and say, oh, I'm going to go for crappy health insurance coverage. You just can't. Anyway, completely screws up their whole outlook for their financial lives. And unfortunately, I had to give this advice. You can't put as much money into your retirement plan. You've got to pay for this health insurance. Of course, my other message was get out there and hustle, since she and her husband are both self-employed. Or get a job that has insurance. It just shows you that insurance is so valuable and you only realize it when you don't have it. All right, let's go take a caller. Next up, we've got Kristen. She's calling from Portland, Oregon. Tell me what I can do for you, Kristen.
Sure, thank you. So I'm calling because I currently live in a condo and my HOA fees recently increased pretty substantially. They are now about $650 a month, which seems really high, especially because we also have to pay for all of our special assessments and things like that. And this is especially meaningful to me because I'm doing some career planning as well. So I know my career is pretty long. I'm in the front half of it, and I'm pretty happy working a corporate job. But as I look at the back half of my career, I'm trying to take a less stressful, potentially nonprofit role, which will come with a lower salary. So I want to go into that in a really good place from a cash flow perspective. And I really want to be debt-free going into that. And so as I think about that and the fact that my HOA fees aren't paying down any debt or building equity, it starts to feel like a pretty high share of my take-home that goes towards housing.
Right.
And also, my current mortgage is completely paid off, so I'm debt-free right now.
How old are you? How old are you?
I'm 30.
How could you have I can't believe it. That's amazing. So, all right, your condo, you're 30. You married or single?
I'm married.
Okay. Do you guys own this jointly, or is this in your name?
It's in my name.
I had a feeling. Someone who's 30 years old who's like very directed. How much is the condo worth, would you guess?
It's worth about $450.
Okay. So the homeowners association stuff, it's going up. It's a little bit of a drag. Kids or no kids?
No kids, and undetermined if we're going to do it in the future.
Okay. So let's say that you wanted to blow out of the condo. And because, I know homeowners associations, it's like co-ops also, like, it also has like this level of like annoyance factor. There's an ease, but there's also with that an annoyance, and they dictate some stuff. What if you were to buy a single family detached home? Could you find something for $450, or would you be spending more than that?
No. So if we were to buy a single-family detached home, I think we'd have to pick up, if we sold the condo, we'd end up with a mortgage of about $300,000 to $500,000.
Well, wait a minute. How much do you have to spend? You got to spend $1 million or something?
Probably close to $800,000.
Okay. All right. So, I get you. Okay. How much do you guys earn together? Oh, let me just ask one other question. How old's your husband?
He's in his 30s as well.
Okay.
Early 30s.
And does he own any real estate himself?
No real estate, and also he doesn't have any debt either.
Oh, you married well. Perfect. Together, about how much do you earn?
We earn probably between $350 and $400.
Okay. And when you say, I'm willing to kind of plug away and be in my corporate job, what does that look like in terms of a time horizon for you?
Probably 10 years.
Okay. So you hate debt. I get that.
I actually like it.
Oh,
but,
good.
So I don't have any problem with that, but I'm trying to do like long-term career planning.
I understand. And I imagine with 350 or 400 grand in earnings, you're both putting money into retirement accounts?
Yeah, we're both maxing out our 401ks and then contributing after tax as well.
Okay, great. How much money do you guys have in, let's call it, total retirement savings for the two of you?
I'd say close to 500.
That's awesome. You guys are doing great. Non-retirement savings?
Probably 200.
Okay, great. Do you think that both you and your husband would be taking a step back, or are you really saying, I'm going to work real hard, I'm going to really move into nonprofit land, maybe earn half as much? Do you think he would want to do a similar kind of career?
Yeah, definitely.
You guys, I love this. This is FIRE. This is financial independence, retire early. You're not retiring early, I know, but it's about all of the options that are available to you. It's so great. It like fires me up to see a new generation like this. It really does. So do you think that if you did not have kids, and you said that's a question mark right now, is the space that you have in this condo something that you're happy with?
Yeah, it's totally adequate. So I do understand that there's like this additional thing where there's some preference wrapped up into it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's totally adequate. Yeah.
Okay. In your heart of hearts, do you feel like you want to move? I mean, because I want to say that because I mean, $650 a month is a drag, but you know what? You're going to have taxes and upkeep in a house, in a real single family detached house, is a drag also. And there are certain things that you have to just suck up when it's your house that the condo association fees are doing for you. I guess what I'm trying to kind of uncover here is, do you really want a house? Because if you do, you can afford it and you should do it. And if you don't, then stop fretting about these fees, because you're probably going to spend way more than that on a house.
Okay. That's helpful. So just look at it as an idea of preference, and if we want to move, do it.
Yeah.
And we should be fine either way.
Yeah. And you know what? I think having a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, getting that mortgage, you'll be able to use that mortgage interest deduction. I know it's capped, but you're underneath the mortgage limit amount. And I think that you're going to be in just fine shape either way. Don't be in such a rush to pay down a mortgage. It's good debt to have. But if you really do feel like, hey, I want to have better options sooner, clearly the condo, because you're not going to have to eat up those extra expenses, you'll start to rack up the money a lot faster in your non-retirement assets if you have the condo rather than the house.
Yeah.
So
True.
Right? So if that's really our long-term game plan, then I absolutely think you're in great shape. But if you're like, ugh, I hate this condo and I hate my neighbors and I want my own yard and that's important to me, then go buy a house.
All right. I love it.
You like that? Fantastic.
Yeah.
Go and you will and you'll let me know how things go. If you buy a house, send us a picture. Okay, we will get back to your calls in just a second. During the break, why don't you do this? Why don't you follow us on social? Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. The handle is @JillOnMoney. And, you probably want to go onto my Facebook page and wish me a happy birthday. It's coming up. All right, Jill on Money. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger takes the mystery out of your finances.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. What's going on in your financial life? Need some help? Need a little boost? We'd love to hear from you. Send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. Okay, I love when we get comments about the shows that we produce. And on our sister podcast, Jill on Money, we had a great episode with Chris Guillebeau, who wrote a book called 100 Side Hustles. And Robert followed up and said, the subject matter really hits home with me. Years back, I think the side hustle terminology was actually moonlighting. Oh, yeah. For example, people would leave their 9-to-5 corporate jobs and go directly to work at some small business or retail shop in the evenings a couple days a week or during the holidays. In my case, the side hustle came kind of naturally. Growing up in the 60s and 70s in the Houston area, I was a percussion player, drummer, and played many shows and gigs around town. When it came time to get serious and make a real living, he puts it in quotes, as my parents would lecture me, I ended up getting an accounting degree and my CPA. Wow. I then went to work for a major CPA firm and finally one of the super major oil and gas companies. I retired 4 years ago after 32 years. During my business career, I wanted to continue playing music, and I'd been playing seriously since early elementary school. It would just be very difficult to walk away from it. So, I love this. I continued accepting music jobs, but was careful not to let them interfere with my accounting and CPA work. It really did work. I can't tell you how many times I had to go directly to the music venue, a country club, a hotel, theater, from my corporate work, change into my tux, and get ready to play the gig by 7 p.m. It was all worth it, not only financially, but now that I'm retired from the corporate world, I can continue playing music to make a little golf money and enjoy hanging out with all of my musician friends. But wait, I had another side hustle. Being an accountant CPA, I mostly specialized in tax compliance and planning. So, of course, I accepted a few individual clients over the years. I was busy during tax prep season, doing most of the work on Saturdays and Sundays. Again, never interfering with my corporate work. Music and accounting is a great combination of professions. What did I do with the extra shekels I earned from my side hustles and moonlighting? Mainly, it was earmarked for savings and investment in getting my son through college and law school without any debt. Thanks for all the great work you and Mark do and the financial information you provide. Robert from Houston. I love that. That is so awesome. It's so funny because I agree. I think that there's something about having like a separate part of your life that kind of has nothing to do with your real job, your 9-to-5 job. I just think it's so, I don't know, it's like it makes you happier in your job in some respects. It's something of your own. It's something that you can control. I think it's like key. It really is. So it doesn't mean you have to be an entrepreneur. It doesn't mean you have to do a ton of other stuff that's going to make you crazy. It's just for fun sometimes and a little extra money. It's pretty good. Not bad. Okay, this is a note from Linda. Oh, her husband passed away in June, and she said she filed for his Social Security. It's now the fall, still nothing. Huh. We both took our Social Security at age 62. I should be receiving his Social Security. She said that she went to the office. She called. Can you direct me to a lawyer? Ay, ay, ay. What do you think about this one, Mark? I don't know if you need a lawyer. I think you might have to go plant yourself in the office. And you should do it with a friend. Don't do it by yourself just because it sounds like you're really at your wit's end. You know, we don't make great decisions when we're at our wit's end. I really think you're going to have to go in. Christine works for UPS as a trailer mechanic. Recently divorced, 53, no kids, no home that she owns. She says the retirement options have changed. We're now going to have to wait until we're 65, so no more 30 years and out. The option I'm faced with is to take retirement at age 55 at a 4.8% hit until 65. I qualify for health insurance. Then you get your own pension. Okay. Just having a hard time. I don't know if you need a financial advisor. I think that what you really, I don't understand why you wouldn't just keep working. That's the question. I think that there is something about working later with a tax that's, I don't know, this is a really tough one. I think what you need is probably an accountant who can help you and pay by the hour to help make this decision, or a fee-only financial advisor to help you with this question. So I would go to NAPFA, NAPFA.org. That is where I would turn to try to find someone in your area, or a CPA probably could also do this, or any kind of tax preparer could probably help you out. Okay, here's a question from someone whose name I cannot possibly pronounce, so I'm just going to say anonymous. My wife and I plan to retire soon. She'll retire at the end of the year at 62 and a half. I'll retire A month later, at age 64, we have pensions and we are qualified for Social Security, which we plan on initiating when we retire. Why? Can't you wait? We'd rather you wait until your full retirement age. Okay, so let me just say, they've got $600,000 in retirement accounts. They have assets. They're healthy. We always lived within our means. They do have a home equity loan. And then he says, I calculated that if we start collecting Social Security immediately, our break-even point would be around 79 if we decided to wait until our retirement age. Okay, here's my big suggestion to you. My suggestion is do not take your Social Security until you are each at your full retirement ages. Don't do it. And I think that you really should be pulling out money you need from whatever you need. Hopefully it's already been taxed, if you have some money that is in a non-retirement account. But I think you should wait until you are at full retirement age to pull your Social Security. And in terms of your portfolio, 40% stocks, 30% bonds, 30% cash. Probably too heavy in cash, by the way. But it wouldn't be terrible. It's not terrible to leave it there, but it's probably a little cash heavy for me, especially for a retirement account. Wait until you claim. Pretty please, please. You're listening to Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question of any sort, send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. We'll be right back.
Do I invest here? Should I put my money there? Jill Schlesinger can help you. Back to Jill on Money.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, I would love to hear from you. All you have to do, send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. So I write a column for the Tribune Company, which I now think is called Trunk. Maybe you see me in your local newspaper. Sometimes I get a lot of emails about them. So I've been writing and talking a lot. We've been talking a lot about college and college financing. So here is a note from Tom who says, your article spoke to me. I'm right in the rough spot between earning too much to get financial aid, a little over $200,000 per year, but not enough to comfortably pay for college out of current income. Beyond this, my income was much lower during my two daughters' growing up years. So, despite frugal living, it was not feasible to set aside the kind of money I would need. Suffice to say, our home equity line of credit has not gone underused. One developing phenomenon you should be aware of is that few of my younger daughter's friends, currently seniors in high school, have said that their parents plan to have them take on all of the student loans they can, regardless of need, in the belief that in the current cultural moment, it is a near certainty that those loans will be eventually forgiven or wiped out without consequences. I must confess this approach crossed my mind as well. It almost feels like free college is already here de facto. If this catches on, it will, of course, become a self-fulfilling prophecy, as the amounts of student debt will accelerate even more than has already been the case. Can only imagine the economic consequences. I wonder if you've heard of others taking this approach. Well, I haven't heard of that. I mean, I know of cases like that, Tom, but here's my fear about any of these projections. It could be that some college debt is wiped out, but it could be the same thing. It could be based on income. So wouldn't that be a shame if you took on debt and it was based on income and it wasn't actually relieved? And wouldn't that be a shame if you bet on something that never came to fruition, only to saddle yourself or your kids with debt? So I'd be careful. Matt says I should write a follow-up article about parents influencing kids to avoid out-of-state high costs for basic undergraduate degrees. Matt goes on and says, many of our friends lost control of educating or influencing their kids to make the right decision to control the cost. Why go out of state to spend over $250,000 a year? I'm sorry, to spend $250,000 total for a degree when you can get an in-state diploma for under $80,000. Then they don't have to cry about trying to have the government write off their debt as they drive away in their BMWs. A follow-up article? Don't buy a BMW. It's tons of maintenance. I think you'll be sorry. It's tough. I get it. I think that there are, again, more and more, the more questions that come in around college, the more I am absolutely convinced that having the conversation is really the important part. Having that conversation is really critical. Debbie writes, hey, thank you for this morning's reminder to complete the new FAFSA form. I forgot it last year. I missed the opportunity to apply for grants and scholarship for my son who's enrolled at UMass Boston. I appreciate your advice and tips. Warm regards, Debbie. Debbie, I'm so glad you got that. I like to just make it timely. Timely. Okay, here's a question that is from Son. I wanted your opinion on whether it's a good time to purchase a home or not. My wife and I were able to save up 20% for a $650,000 home. Now, that being said, we've got $20,000 in car loans and miscellaneous credit card debt. Bah. Should we pay off our debt or keep as is? Do you think we should invest our liquid cash into a first home? We make about $250,000 a year. How could you make $250,000 a year and have credit card debt? Here's what I think you should do. First things first, pay off the credit card debt. That's number one. Number two, you need to have an emergency reserve fund. So that emergency reserve fund means that you're going to have somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 to 12 months of living expenses in the bank. Safe or money market. Then you need to really figure out whether it's time for you guys to buy a home or not. It may not be. I mean, if you've got all that money that's in cash, it seems to me that you want to be credit card debt free, probably auto loan debt free, and then really determine, is it something you need to do? Your rent is $2,500 a month. Is that home going to cost you a lot more? Are you sure you want to stay there? I need some more information, but run the numbers. Mark, we still have the New York Times rent versus buy calculator on the Jill on Money website, don't we? So why don't you do that? Go to the JillOnMoney.com website, and there we have a nice, beautiful resource section. Click on resources, and you can then look at the buy versus rent calculator. It's great. Easy. How much time? Under one, it's okay. I can do it. Kathleen says, we want to remortgage to a lower interest rate, get money for remodeling, a mortgage broker. What should we do? Hey, you know what? You can interview some mortgage brokers. You can look online. Just be very careful. Why? Maybe don't shorten your term. Maybe you want to keep the term just as it is to give yourself a little bit of breathing room just in case something bad happens. That's something that can be helpful. Don't box yourself in. You are listening to Jill on Money. Go to that website, JillOnMoney.com, and you can sign up for our free weekly newsletter. Isn't that fun? It's free and weekly. All right, we'll be right back. You're back. It's Jill on Money, and we are broadcasting live from the Capital One studios. Capital One, what's in your wallet? If you've got a financial question, just shoot us an email. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. Okay, Nelson writes, when I retired, I instructed my pension fund to set aside $300 a month of my pension for my spouse. So sometimes that's a joint in half. I don't know what percentage that is, but it's a way to create a pension benefit for you and a spouse. Okay. My wife and I decided we wanted to stop this and have that money either absorbed back into my pension or transferred to a savings account. We're told it has been locked in. Yeah, that is true. You've made a permanent pension election and you cannot change it. Sorry. No, there's no recourse. You're done. Sorry about it. Dee says, I've learned so much from you, Jill. You're my financial role model. Ay, ay, ay. I feel the weight of that on my shoulders. I'd like your opinion on investing in a Vanguard investment-grade corporate bond fund. I max out my retirement accounts, 403B and Roth in Vanguard target date accounts, and have a one-year emergency fund in an online savings account earning 2.2% interest. I've got another $40,000 in the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index, another $25,000 I won't need for at least 5 years. And I'm considering investing this in a Vanguard bond fund. I don't know which one. Is bond investing a good choice for me? Okay, 62 years old. You know what? I think that bond funds can be great. I think that, as always, you are already in the Vanguard universe. So there is a Vanguard Intermediate Term Bond Index. There's also a Vanguard Total Bond Market Index. Probably has a little bit more risk than the intermediate term. And I think that if you don't really need the money, it's fine to just sort of put it out there, let it be. In terms of what you're going to need this for, it's probably just supplemental retirement. Just know that this is a taxable bond fund. So you will need that as information, because whatever you invest in, whatever comes out, you're going to be taxed on that. Okay? All right. Hey, we got a whole nother hour to go, so stay tuned. It's Jill on Money. During the break, hop onto our website, jillonmoney.com. Bookmark it, and then whenever you have a question, you can just go to the website and hit the contact button. All right. We will have one more whole hour, so stay tuned. We'll be right back.
It's the weekend, and that can only mean one thing. You're listening to Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
All righty, it's hour number 2, and I have a lot of excitement around this guest because, as usual, I met her in the CBS This Morning green room, tackled her, thought she did an amazing job on the air, but it was such a tiny amount of time. I said, how'd you like to come into a studio with me and record an interview for a longer form? Her name is Belinda Luscombe. She wrote a book called Marriageology, and it's so great. It's sort of like really falls into our wheelhouse here at the show because she does talk about lots of different things about successful relationships. She does tell a quite personal story about her own marriage and a financial fiasco. But the more important issue here is that there are some tips that she provides that I think are very good for all of us, especially as we go into the holiday season. The one that I brought back to my relationship that we have been using a ton since I ever met Belinda in the first place is to say something very simple. Thank you. That little moment of appreciation really does matter. Okay, here is our interview with Belinda Luscombe. So how did you get on this track? How did you start covering family relationships? Tell us a little bit about yourself. First of all, we are suckers for a great accent, so we tend to just have anyone on who has an accent.
I'm from the great city of Sydney, Australia, so that's an Australian accent. You're hearing not a New Zealand accent, not a South African accent.
Understood.
Not a Scottish accent, which I've also been asked about. And my husband won a fellowship to study at Columbia University. He's an architect. And I just sort of started to try and find jobs and eventually lucked into a job at Time magazine, writing about celebrities mostly. I think they thought that I was rude enough. That I would not be put off by having to talk to famous people. And then I thought, I do not want to do this anymore for a living. And so I sort of segued into writing about humans of another sort, but the ones that are closer to us.
You get off the starlet beat.
I do, or the star beat. It occurred to me that famous people, they've practiced what they want to say, and I miss talking to real people, and I find them really interesting. And I also wanted to be helpful. I wanted to do journalism that would make people's lives better. One of the things I do is review books as a family writer. I get probably 2 books a week about how to have happy children. We probably get at time 3 or 4 books a week, how to be happy in yourself. And you get like 1 book a year on marriage. And I was like, there's a gap in the market that I could step into, not just the, the book selling market, but just the knowledge market. Because it seems to me that the relationship that you choose, the one that you have with this person, it will be one of the longest relationships that you have. You have no biological imperative to be with them. It used to be that if you want to have kids, you had to get married. If you want to have sex, you had to get married. If you wanted to, if as a woman, you wanted to have a financially secure future, you had to get married. None of those things are true anymore. Marriage is completely optional now. So what has this relationship become? How has it changed? How do we manage it now? And it seemed like we weren't looking at the data on this.
And so you did go deep into data, which I love because I'm such a nerd. So I like that you go back and you say, let's look at some of this. So tell us a little bit about some of the surprising things that you found as you were covering the beat and researching the book.
I think one of the most surprising things I found was how just very small changes can be transformative. And they're sort of like stuff that almost sounds like common sense, but somebody has actually researched them. One of the interesting studies was if you say thank you to your spouse.
I love that.
It makes such an enormous difference. Now, on the one hand, that's just good manners. On the other hand, they're your spouse. Like, you do things for them, they do things for you. We shouldn't have to be thanking each other all the time. But to choose to say thank you, it has an enormous effect. And I think it's for 2 reasons. One, the person who's hearing the thank you realizes that or believes that they are not being taken for granted. It is nice to be thanked. Nobody hates being thanked. Nobody ever goes, well, why did you say that? If you say thank you, people feel better about themselves. And that's a great thing to do as a spouse. And the other one is when you say thank you to someone, especially if you are looking for things to say thank you for, you yourself realize this person does stuff.
Right. Right. It's I value you.
I value you.
Right.
That's one of the sort of transformative things I learned.
We have some research that shows us that a lot of millennials now, when they're dating, they actually say, I don't want to, hook up with somebody who's got student loan debt, or I need to have someone who is financially secure. And I think that's so different from when I was growing up. Like, you didn't really think about that. They're very attuned to money.
I think that's true. Also, what you have seen in the last 10, 20, even 30, 40 years is that people who are wealthy or comfortable get married much more often than people who aren't. It tends to be much more an activity that's practiced by people who have college degrees and are sort of set on their path, and then they get married as some kind of this is the next sort of step, and much less among people whose futures have been made more difficult by the sort of hollowing out of the manufacturing industry.
And we also know that people fight about money quite a bit. It's usually what I found after interviewing a bunch of people, it's about that family of origin, that a lot of your money habits are formed when you're young. So if you grew up with a pretty onerous dad who kicked your butt and always just made you feel horrible about money, years later, you say, I'm never going to do that to my kids. So I'm going to give them everything. And you become an enabler. And if that's in conflict with the way that your spouse has been brought up, that's a tough one to overcome. So what advice do you have for people who find themselves fighting and quibbling about money?
Well, I think the first one is the one that you very, very smartly point out, which is to understand that when you came into your marriage, you already had a relationship and you couldn't get rid of that relationship, and that was your relationship with money. The studies tend to show that money fights, they're the most vicious and they're the ones that get worse over time. Like, people usually sort of compromise about stuff. And I think you have to understand that money is also something that makes people very alarmed. If you are not getting the amount of sex you want, that's boring and not fun and joyless, I guess. But it's not like you're going to lose your house, or, it doesn't feel so existential. And money is a place where we go for safety. And when it's threatened, that's why they now talk about financial infidelity, which is where your spouse or partner takes your money and does sort of deceptive things with them because they have betrayed your trust in this very profound way. So I think spouses have to understand that they have a relationship with money, even if they don't. They have brought that relationship from their family of origin, even if your family didn't talk about money, which my family didn't really. You have this kind of attitude towards it. And that your spouses are not going to be the same. So you need to sit down and talk about it.
Not only is marriage like a sacrament, if you're going to do it religiously, it is a financial partnership. Like, that is how the government is treating you. That, to me, means you really have to disclose everything.
Full transparency.
No doubt, right?
Absolutely full transparency. Even if you have terrible, horrible debt, the debt is now your debt as a couple.
We'll get back to Marriageology author Belinda Luscombe in just a minute. Hey, during the break, why don't you head on over to the website, JillOnMoney.com, and there you can check out all the great stuff that we do all week long. The stuff we write, other things we record, TV segments, resources. Go right now, JillOnMoney.com. We'll be right back.
Do I invest here? Should I put my money there? Jill Schlesinger can help you. Back to Jill on Money.
All right, it's hour number 2. Hey, Mark, did I forget to say that I am in the special studio, Policy Genius studio? All right, I'll do it again. We're broadcasting live from the Policy Genius studios. Policy Genius is the easy way to compare and buy insurance. Go to policygenius.com. You know, we got to get that CEO back in here, Jennifer Fitzgerald. I liked her. Okay, we are not talking about insurance. We are talking about marriage, relationships, and we have an expert with us here in studio, Belinda Luscombe. She's the author of a book called Marriageology. She's also the editor-at-large at Time. You know, I think this is a fascinating topic that we delve into because I understand from some of my millennial cohorts here at work that they're very interested in the amount of debt that people bring into a relationship. And many of them are hardcore. They basically say, I'm not paying down the debt of my partner. Even if I get married, if I really make it, tie that knot, I'm not doing it. So I put that question to Belinda Luscombe. We have many people who will call up and say, I'm getting married, but that's my wife's debt. That's her student loans. Do you think that's a red flag?
Yes, I think it's a red flag. I think people have to understand that's what you do when you get married. You're both getting in the same boat, and where the current takes you, you both have to row. And I think with debt, and it is one of the biggest problems, financial problems that people argue about, but it can be overcome. It's kind of a great project that you could both take on, where you say, okay, we're going to do this and this and this to, overcome this debt.
Okay, so let's talk about your own little rounding error of $70,000.
If only.
So, Belinda, you had a $70,000 oversight.
Yes.
Do tell.
So, I've worked for this company for a long time, Time Magazine, and for a while it was Time Warner. And you get these things called stock options that mature. And, of course, I'm not paying attention to this. I'm paying attention to Robert De Niro, or I'm paying attention to the news. And I think at one point I got to the screen, because some people were talking about it, where you have to exercise your trade to turn
your options into stock.
Options into stock. And I had my mouse, I remember this so clearly, hovering over it. And then there was I think I even clicked it, and they're like, do you want this to, there was some question about what you do with the stock. Do you want money, or how do you want to pay for, it was a stupid thing. I can't
taxes or whatever. How many, should we withhold taxes?
Yeah, something like that. And
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know the answer to that question, so I'm not going to do it. And then I just got distracted.
Meryl Streep came around.
Someone came around. And then I went back and thought, I've really got to do that. And then I went to do it, and they're like, no, those options have gone.
Yeah, expired.
They expired.
Worthless.
From $70,000 to zero. Although I was talking to some friends about it, they go, I wasn't. They were trying to make me feel better.
Oh, it's only after tax. You'd have to pay tax, and you have to do that. It's only $40,000.
Felt so.
I like your
so
description
sick.
of it.
Yes, where it's like, I was trying to figure out how I felt it. It's like, I think you could get the feeling if you lie on the ground and you ask a friend to climb a little step ladder and drop a bowling ball on your stomach. That would be kind of how it would feel. And then there's this kind of wish, I really wish someone else had done that and that hadn't happened. And there's nothing you can do. I was one of those people like, oh, well, you can just fix it afterwards. This is fix it in post. No, sir. That's that was a hard lesson. A hard. And we were not wealthy at the time.
Okay, so full disclosure to the hubby?
That's the question.
Yes or no?
I mean, yes or no. Well, I was like, oh, boy. And I, my parents were comfortable. His parents were not. So, he has a thing around money. His money attitude is different to mine. And so I'm like sitting there sort of drumming my fingers. What do you do? I mean, he didn't know about them. We don't talk about stock options, clearly. Yeah. I mean, I could have got away with it. He would never have known.
But you would have carried that burden.
Yeah. Deception generally is bad, I think. So.
All right. Let me give you another rapid fire. So you'd say full disclosure. That's it.
That's it.
Okay. And everything with the money, any other money-related observations you have for love and money?
I think there's a sort of open question about whether or not you need a budget. Some people do well with a budget. Some people don't. There are lots of, I thought, very interesting discussions about, the practicality of it, which I'm sure you talk about all the show. Do you have a joint? Do you have a joint with some side money? Do you keep separate accounts? And people do that differently and for good reasons. But I think whatever works for you, talk about it.
You know, what's the funny thing that we get a lot is that people will call in and they'll say, I'm risk averse and my wife's a big risk taker. That's a problem.
Yeah.
And what I will often say to people is that may be a place where you say, hey, you know what? I'm going to bring in a third party here. I'm going to bring somebody in here and say, like, based on your joint goals and what you really say you want to accomplish, you should have this kind of like your joint assets look like this. Now, if wife wants to go out and go pile money into Bitcoin and roll the dice, no sweat, but that money is assumed to be zero. We never count on it. And if you want to have some money that's really, really safe, that's fine. But that we put a plan together
right.
where we can satisfy both of you.
It's a really great idea.
Right?
Yeah.
And the other place where we see a big schism is around education.
Right.
So we have, I was just talking to a woman last night. I was down in Philadelphia. I was doing an event. She said, you know what? I went to public schools. It was fine for me. And my husband grew up like mainline Philadelphia, only wants private schools. Who's right? I'm like, right? There's no right. What can you afford? She said, we really can't afford to do private high school and private university. I said, okay, well, there's only so many dollars. It's causing friction, and they can't get over it.
That's where I feel like, okay, let's sit down and budget. If you want to send the kid to private school, I went to private school. My husband went to private school. If you want to send the kids to private school, run the numbers. I didn't send my kids to private school. I sent the perfectly adequate New York City public schools.
They were perfectly adequate, and they're fine. And guess where are they in college now? Where it's free.
It's free. As you can see, I'm frugal.
I like that. I can't see that, but I'm hearing that.
Yes. But where we have that difference in my marriage, and I read about this in the book, is that I buy all my clothes from thrift stores. And every single thing I'm wearing right now, with a possible exception of foundation garments, is secondhand.
Okay.
And my husband, and so I don't like to spend a lot of money on clothes. I love clothes, but I don't like to. My husband is the kind of guy who will walk into a kind of fancy designer, pick a coat that costs like 4 figures, and walk out and not break a sweat.
No, he's like, that Burberry trench coat is beautiful.
And then he will, by the way, wear that every day for 10 years and look sharp as a number 2 pencil. And I'm like, I was like, I don't really like that top I bought, and take it back and buy another one. So we have a completely different attitude. And I have to take a deep breath in when he buys a big ticket item like that and think, how can we afford that? And then think, oh, well, he's not going to buy anything else now for like a year or several years, so it's actually going to work out.
It's interesting because I think that how you fight is a very good predictor of how that relationship is going to last.
And the experts agree with you.
Oh, thank God.
Yes.
It's funny. It's hard to have an emotionally engaged relationship and not fight. So give us some ground rules for fighting.
Well, when they say don't go to bed angry, I think that's garbage. Go to bed angry. Feel free to go to bed angry. Have the fight in the morning. Why would you fight tired? That's ridiculous.
That's brilliant. I love that.
So go to bed angry. Sleep it off, man. Don't fight hungry. Don't fight under other, stressful situations. When you have a fight, give some respect to it. Like say, okay, I'm going to pick a good time to have this discussion. I'm going to make sure that it's a serious discussion. I'm going to, the experts say to somebody, okay, I want to talk about something. So you're not just coming out of the blue when they're already doing something and suddenly attacking them. And when you have a problem, don't say, oh, you always or you never. If you can avoid those two phrases, those are toxic, because you're attacking the person, not the problem. So it's if you can. And, of course, we're all kind of, doing our best. Our bodies are already kind of churning to say, I have a problem with this, or I really don't like it when you do this.
Okay, we'll have more with Belinda Luscombe in just a minute. Right now, during our break, you may want to hop on to JillOnMoney.com, and you can listen to past shows. And if you've missed any part of this one, we'll have it a little bit, maybe later in the weekend. We'll have it up for you. Okay, it's Jill on Money. We'll be right back.
.401ks, IRAs, refinancing, she covers it all. Back to Jill on Money with Jill Schlesinger.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. And we are so lucky because we've got a great guest. Her name is Belinda Luscombe. She wrote a book called Marriageology. She's also the editor at Time. And we're talking about, obviously, relationships. And I guess I didn't realize this until I became a certified financial planner and started seeing clients. And when they say, oh, people fight about money more than anything else in a relationship, I never believed it. However, I did see it. If you want to be making yourselves nuts, you'll say, oh, I never want to fight. That's crazy. You have to fight. This is your partner. You're going to fight. But how do you fight fair? How do you fight smart? And how can you fight in a more productive way, not a destructive way? That is what we talk about in this segment with Belinda Luscombe. When I think about having a fight and you say feeling attacked personally, as I'm always like worst case scenario, especially because, I've had a couple of really rotten failed relationships. So sometimes when I hear something that feels like attacking, I don't feel like, oh, it's a fight. I feel like, okay, here it is, the beginning of the end. I've been here before. And
right.
I go to the worst possible place.
You've got to fight, and I use this analogy, and not everybody loves it, but, there's two types of fighting. There's the sort of ultimate fighting, championship fighting, where you really are in the ring to get that person down, and it's a kind of a death match. And then there's the sort of fighting you see on sort of the WWE, where it's like, well, actually what we're doing is we're stomping around a bit and we're continuing a story. We're making an interesting chapter in a story. And that when those fighters fight, they actually do go at it, but they make sure that their partner is safe. They don't want them to step out of that ring hurt, And so you've got to, when you fight, make sure that the person feels safe. It will just be a not just because you're a nice person, but because it will be a better, more constructive fight, and you're more likely to get what you want. And I think that the other key thing is, and you're not always going to reach a solution, and you are going to do some lousy stuff, and so you have to get really good at apologizing.
I love the apology. I love saying thank you, and I love apologizing. And
right.
I say this to Mark all the time because sometimes I'll say, well, why don't they just say, I'm sorry? Why are you giving me that? Like, he doesn't do this. I'm just saying that sometimes when I have an interaction with somebody, and it's like, why don't they just say I'm sorry? Or like, you know what? That's not going to happen.
I mean, we are taught to say sorry from when we are very, very small children. We're taught the form. We're taught when to do it. And we suck at it so bad for our entire lives. It's like, why can't we master it? And there's two words that I think if people could just put them out of their mind when they're going to say, I'm sorry. Never say, I'm sorry if, because you're calling into question the person's grievance.
Right.
So I'm sorry if I offended you is absolutely not an apology.
Right.
I already explained that you offended me. There's no if there, right? Are you questioning my...
How about I'm sorry if you felt that way?
Yeah, I'm sorry if you felt...
I'm going to put your head through a window if you say that to me.
That's like red rag to a bull. In raging, infuriating. Do not do that. Just keep your mouth shut. Because then something's wrong with you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry that something is wrong with you. And you're like, that's not what's going on here. And the other one, if you can avoid, is to say, I'm sorry, but. Like, I'm sorry I didn't close the door, but you don't do things. And you're like, no, you've just completely undone any good work you were hoping to do. Just say, figure out what X is. It's the thing you did wrong. And then apologize for it. And then walk the hell away or shut up, because it's cost you nothing. It's a completely free thing to do.
Right.
And you have made the best move of stopping in its tracks the resentment that could be building up or the unhappiness.
It's funny that the lessons, and backed up by research, really do go back to just be a human being.
Well, I think that's what marriage really is. It's this great, or a long-term partnership of any kind, it's this great experiment in how do you become more human and how do you become a better version of you. That's by loving someone else. It's only in that sort of very close relationship with someone that we can really do this fine-tuning. It's like, okay, you can learn to play the cello and you can get really good, but it's not until you've been playing it for years and years and years that you get to be like Yo-Yo Ma, that you know all the tricks, that you can get the real, the total nuances of it.
What, in researching the book, do you think is a myth around marriageology? Like, what are some of the myths that we just got to throw out?
Well, you're not going to find your soulmate.
Yeah, forget that.
Just you're not looking for a soulmate. If you, it'd be like, I'm looking for the one person who will complete me. That's just garbage. You're not looking for that, and you're not going to find that. And the person that you choose that you think is that is not going to be that. Mm-hmm. You have to become one, and they will hopefully become yours. That's something that you grow into. So I think that's a huge myth and sold, because romantic love is a beautiful and wonderful thing and, is probably like the rocket boosters that get marriages into orbit, right? You need it. But it's not going to be like that forever. And there will be moments of it. And some people do kind of keep that alive. But mostly what you're finding is you're absolutely your best friend, somebody that you can trust and somebody that you will learn from. So that was one big myth, that somehow marriage would complete
Which is why I think some of the dating apps are so funny, because it's like, we're going to find you this perfect match. I'm like, oh, brother, good luck with that.
I think it's good to choose wisely. Don't choose somebody who you wouldn't like if you weren't in love with them. But I don't think you're ever going to find like your other jigsaw piece. I don't think you're like a jigsaw piece with a bit missing and then they're going to complete you.
If I may therapize everyone for a minute, you complete yourself first. Start there. Then we'll see if you can find someone else.
But even if you don't complete yourself first, go on the journey of completion with them.
Right.
I think we need to be a little bit more realistic about what we expect from marriage. And it will be great. It will be fantastic. It is a wonderful thing to attempt and to do. And you do have a companion. But you're not going to be in like ecstatic love. It's like, I say in the book that marriage is like baked beans. It's shelf stable. It's there. It's reliable. You can get it out. And what we expect is souffle, which is this delightful thing. And souffle doesn't last.
No.
And it's and it's a lot of work. You would not want to be in that, I can't think about anybody else. He's the most fantastic thing in my life. Oh
right.
My
By
God,
the way, you
wouldn't want to be in that the whole time.
You're not in your right mind in that state.
And you'd never get anything done.
Right. And you certainly wouldn't manage your money well.
Yeah. No. You'd be blowing it all on,
anything.
Candy and bonbons.
I like that. Okay. We want to thank Belinda Luscombe for joining us. What a wonderful guest. Her book is Marriageology. You should go get it right now. Go get it. Go get it right now. And when we return, we're going to get back to your questions. It's Jill on Money. And if you've got a question, just send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. We'll be right back.
Follow Jill on Twitter and Instagram for more personal finance content. Just use the handle @JillOnMoney. Now, back to the show.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. You should see how I've jerry-rigged this studio to create a stand-up desk for myself. Basically, I've got a sit-down horrible desk with a terrible chair, and I know I left that for you. Do you want that? That's me talking to Mark. It's like one of those weird extension Bluetooth things. You might want it. I don't know. Anyway, I'm talking to you here live from the heartbeat of the universe, Gotham, New York City, with very, very bad studios. Anyway, love to hear from you. Got a financial question? Send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. Paul writes, my wife and I are turning 62 next year. We need around $50,000 to live on. But because we're not old enough for Medicare, probably cost another $1,000 a month for health care, rounding up $65,000 a year to maintain our current standard of living. We've got $1 million in a 401k, $600,000 in other investments, $200,000 in cash, zero debt. We own our house. Cars are new. If we take Social Security at 62, we'll combined have $30,000. Dividends for the stock produce about $50,000. We own an investment property, brings in $15,000. Figure taxes at 22% gives us $75,000. Is it a reasonable plan to call it, quit, and retire? Mark, what do you think I'm going to say to that? Bah is right. I don't like that plan. First of all, I don't know. I hate when people take Social Security early. I mean, unless you've got gobs and gobs of money, or if you have no money and you really need it. This is right in between. How about working till your full retirement age? And then you'll really be sweet. I think actually you're a little bit on the bubble, and I don't know. I think you should work longer. I need more information, like how much do you earn, and could you possibly go a little bit part-time? I don't know. Okay, Dan writes, what do you think of annuities? Mark, where's the klaxon? I'm 63 and thinking of putting 40% of my 401k into one, leaving 60% in stocks and bonds. I will be semi-retired at 66. That's your warning. Stay away. Here comes the annuity salesperson. No, Dan. Dan, please, no. I think annuities can be great, but it's a very small percentage of people who should use them. I certainly don't think it's worth paying for a larded up, fee-ridden insurance product when you have a 401k, which is already tax deferred. So no, I don't think this is a good idea for you. I really don't. Doesn't make sense. Call us back. Or send us a note. I want more details, but I can almost guarantee that is not in your best interest. Almost. Maybe there's like some slight chance I'm missing something. Skip wants to know, should we pay off our house loan or not? $180,000 outstanding, house valued at $350,000. Payments are $1,000. I've got 28 years left. I'm 60. My wife is 57 and retired. I make $60,000 a year. Her pension is $2,000 a month. And then there's a payment of about $800 a month that goes away at 62. I want to retire at 62. My pension will be $4,000. Our portfolio is about $550,000 to $600,000. Got some money in Roth, $55,000 in. I think he means a health savings account. Car loan, health is good. I don't like paying $750 a month on the house of interest on the house loan. What's the best thing to do? Here's what I think the best thing to do is: don't pay off the house, because I know that you don't like it, but I don't like you burning up all that liquidity. So you've got a pension, you got money coming in, you can pay the house off if like something goes really great or you keep working a little bit longer. That's fine. But if you are in good health and you've got longevity in your families, which you say you do, what I think is better off doing is to not collect. Again, this is like, please don't collect Social Security at 62. Don't retire early. I think working a little bit longer, keep that mortgage. Don't soak up all that gorgeous liquidity. We need that liquidity, especially in retirement. Scott writes, I first heard you on Planet Money or the Indicator podcast, can't remember which, and your opinions on home ownership resonated with me. I'm a recent college grad who's still trying to find out how I fit into this world, and the idea of home ownership sounds daunting and something I don't necessarily look forward to. I was also worried how on earth I would ever build my net worth without owning a home for possibly 15 more years. When I heard you talking about how renting buys flexibility and that as the 2008 financial crisis showed, homeownership isn't necessarily a foolproof way of building your net worth, I felt like you were talking right to me. I then bought your book. This is exactly how it's supposed to work, people. I then bought your book. I read it over the summer. I loved it. It pushed me to keep my identity safer and to switch my Roth IRA over to Vanguard from a family friend who is earning a commission and charging quite a bit fee-wise. I'm confident that I now understand what a diverse portfolio is and its importance, and I promise never to sell when the market's down. I just wanted to say thank you for spreading your knowledge. Thank you, Scott from Bozeman, Montana. That is like the nicest email. I so appreciate it. I'm glad that we can try to perhaps just demystify some of these broader concepts. So that said, if you want us to demystify things for you, all you have to do is get in touch with us. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. That is our email address. Or if you go onto the website, JillOnMoney.com, you too, like Mr. Montana, can buy the book. The book is right there. Click on it. The Dumb Things Smart People Do With Their Money. 13 Ways to Right Your Financial Wrongs. You can do it right now during the break. All right, we'll be right back. You're back. It's Jill on Money. And before we finish the program, we're going to squeeze in another question or two. If you've got a question, of course, throughout the week, don't forget, we're here manning and womaning the email inbox. Really manning, because I'm not touching it. Mark is. Steve writes, I listen to your radio show regularly and appreciate your advice. I'm a state government employee. I will plan to retire next year at age 59. I'll have 0% reduction in my state pension. Because I'm retiring early, I will need to pay for my own health insurance. My $35,000 a year pension may not cover both health insurance and other living expenses. So, can you advise me on which buckets of other investments I should use now and in what order to cover the gap? Here's what my buckets are. U.S. Treasury notes, deferred comp, which is all of that money has moved to Vanguard, Roth IRA, other taxable Vanguard stock bond and REITs, 3 taxable stock mutual funds outside of Vanguard. No debt, no spouse, no kids. Current home, $150,000. Plan to sell it and move in with my sig other in a home we purchase with all cash and will share expenses. Okay, so you didn't mention how much you have in each, but in general, when you're thinking about this, you want to use the money that has already been taxed. So the money that is in not the deferred comp, but the taxable Vanguard, the taxable stock mutual funds, those accounts are what we're looking at drawing down. Now, what you have to remember, of course, is once you sell some of the funds, you'll probably incur some tax liability. So you may want to wait to do it until you're actually retired, and then maybe your tax bracket goes down. So that's how I would do it. It would be the taxable accounts, then the deferred comp. I don't know how much is in the Treasury notes. I don't know if that's your emergency reserve. You know, you want to have some money in an emergency reserve fund, so I wouldn't go crazy with that. And leave that Roth till the very end. Hopefully you never need it. That would be great. Okay, thanks so much for writing. And hey, thank you so much for listening. It's been a pleasure. You can always send us emails with your questions. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com and go over to the website, JillOnMoney.com. You can sign up for our free weekly newsletter. Thank you. We love chatting with you every week. And don't forget, we have been broadcasting live from the Policy Genius studios. Policy Genius is the easy way to compare and buy insurance. Go to PolicyGenius.com for more information. We will see you next week.